Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Chiefskate, and we are back with another episode of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on today's episode, we will be discussing the Cold Trader Outcasts Gang that you can make for your campaigns of Necromunda Ash Wastes. So with the Book of the Outcast being released, we can now take delegation gangs from all the different criminal syndicates, and we're going to start off with the Cold Traders on this one. We'll discuss the strengths and weaknesses of playing a criminal delegation gang, as well as discusses the fighters that make up the Cold Traders, their play style, and provide critical information that you can use in your campaign. At the same time, we'll also provide you a starting roster of 1,400 points that you can use to build your very first Outcast Cold Traders gang and take them to the depths of the Ash Waste. So with that being said, let's get this video on a roll. Alright, so let's talk about the strengths of playing a delegation outcast gang. So potentially it's one of the most powerful starting gangs that you can actually have in a campaign, and the reason why is because the fighters that make up your delegations. Regardless if you're playing criminal, merchant, or noble house delegations, they usually all start off with excellent equipment and skills right from the start. In some cases they have some really good stats, and they have some very powerful special rules that can make them really advantageous and very competitive in an Ash Waste campaign. At the same time, you can also take advantage of weird disciplines now because the Book of the Outcast release those weird disciplines. You can even customize your fighters even further. And in addition to adding vehicles with heavier weapon options and different boons and weapon gears from those vehicles, could also give your delegation gang a huge advantage out in the Ash Wastes of Necromunda. And these are some of the advantages and strengths of actually playing a delegation outcast gang. Alright, so perhaps the biggest weakness of actually playing a delegation gang that's an outcast gang is that you cannot take any alliances whatsoever. If you decide to use the delegation as the core of your gang, no alliances are available to you. So for example, if you're a merchant guild delegation gang, you can't take criminal alliances or noble house alliances, and vice versa for all the other ones as well. So that's one of the biggest weaknesses of playing a delegation gang. If you really like using alliances to help your gang out, this might not be the one for you. However though, like I said before in the strengths, it does give you a leg up in the actual beginning of a campaign because you have better fighters, better equipment, and better skills. Now, one of the weaknesses of this gang, of course, is that if you decide to play WYSIWYG, which is an acronym for what you see is what you get type of gangs, this can be quite pricey in my opinion. And the reason why is because, for example, if you were to play a Nauticon siphoning delegation, for example, as the core of your gang, and you want to buy the Forge World miniatures in order to fill that gang, those Forge World miniatures can be quite expensive. So because of that, I would suggest looking for cheaper alternatives or convert your own in most cases. A lot of these delegations have not been manufactured yet, so you could possibly do that, but that's just something you might want to take into account. Me, of course, I would never actually do that. I would just convert my own or find alternate ways to get cheaper miniatures, and that's the thing I would keep in mind when I would be playing a delegation gang. At the same time, these gangs are also very expensive to field in terms of credits. These delegations, like I said, have a lot of skills, a lot of weapons, better stats, and you're going to pay for those. For example, I think the cheapest of the delegations starts off at like 540 credits, I believe. So because of that, it's going to be very, very expensive for you to fill these fighters, but that's the way it goes. And lastly, probably the biggest weakness of actually playing an outcast delegation gang is that you do have to be aware of the balanced bandwagon. A lot of balanced bandwagon types will scream overpowered or game breaking or unfair and so on and so forth. But of course, once again, just ignore those immaturity of those players, drink the salt of their tears, and just use that to power yourself in destroying your enemies. So these are some of the strengths and weaknesses involved in playing a delegation gang. Alright, so when it comes to delegation gangs, once again, you get to pick from merchant guilds, criminal syndicates, or noble houses, and use those delegations you get from those alliances to form the core of your gang. Leaders also get archetypes and affiliations depending on what delegation you choose. Also, champions also get archetypes as well, so that allows for a lot of customization for your different members of your delegations depending on the affiliations and the archetypes that you choose. Now, once again, remember, archetypes depend on what kind of primary and secondary skills your champions and your leaders receive, while affiliations usually determine what kind of weapons and equipment you can get from the starting list, if not from the trading post as well. At the same time, the nice thing about these delegations is that the members of those delegations gain experience and they can purchase weapons and equipment over time, just like any other gang, so that part is really, really cool. And once again, I have to make sure I stress this a lot. If you decide to take a delegation outcast gang, you cannot make any alliances whatsoever in the future, so just be aware when that actually happens and keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to your actual criminal delegations that you actually play in your Outcast gang, there's pretty much 5 that you can choose from, all right? Now, granted, there are 6 criminal syndicate factions within the Book of Judgment. However, the Narcolords are not present in this delegation, and the reason why is because their delegation just consists of D3 plus 2 Hive Scum that you could just hire, so that's the reason why they don't have that faction available to you. However, for your delegations, though, you can play a Smuggler Short Party from the Cold Traders, a Factoria Work Gang from the Rogue Factoria faction. You can play a Master Charlatan from the Imperial Imposters faction. You can play a Rebel Lord from the Fallen Houses faction, or a Mind-Locked Wyrd from the Psi Syndicate faction as well. So these are the 5 delegations that you can actually choose from in order to build your gangs. Now, once again, I must remind you, of course, if you decide to do a delegation gang from one of the criminal syndicates, you will not be able to allow to take allies in your list, so keep that in mind. However, there are some advantages. Any weapons, equipment that these gangs actually start off with, their delegations, you can purchase those for all of your Outcast champions and Outcast Hive Scum as well. So that's where the kind of the trade-off comes in. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about how you can use your criminal delegation specifically in the next slide. Alright, so let's go and talk about the Smuggler Short Party real quick. That's going to cost you 600 credits in order to build this core of your delegation for your starting rosters. Now, for obvious reasons, the Smuggler Short Party has always been the most popular criminal alliance choice, and it's for a very good reason. And the reason why is because of the fighters and the equipments that make up that list. They do have some pretty decent shooting at close to medium ranges, but they're really good at powerful close combat, and that powerful close combat ability comes in the form of the Voidborn Scum. We'll talk about those guys a little bit more in detail as we go over the individual fighters. Now, the nice thing about this Smuggler Short Party is that it's going to be a popular choice as well to create an outlaw delegation gang, because you have an equal balance really when it comes with decent shooting and powerful close combat. Makes it very versatile, and the way that you can equip the members of your delegation with better weapons and equipment is going to make them even deadlier. At the same time, you do have some Xenos weapons that are available for your gang as well, and that comes in the form of the Sling gun that is actually packed by the Cold Trader. You can actually purchase that for your champions, or you can even purchase it for your individual Hive Scum, which is actually kind of cool. And same thing with Stiletto knives. Those are going to be really good to use for the close combat capabilities of your fighters as well, and give you some toxic attacks against your opponents. So now that we're done talking about the Smuggler Short Party a little bit and what it brings to the table, let's go ahead and talk about the individual fighters, and we'll start off with the Cold Trader. Alright, so first up, we're going to talk about the Cold Trader. This is going to be the leader of your gang, and this fighter is going to cost you 215 credits. When it comes to their stats, they have movement characteristic of 4 inches, a 4+ weapon skill, a 3+ ballistic skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness, as well as 2 wounds. They also have 4+ for the initiative, 2 attacks, and for their psychology stats, they got 7+ for leadership, 6+ for cool, 6+ for willpower, as well as 6+ for intelligence. Now, when it comes to the Cold Trader, like I said before, it's going to be the leader of your delegation gang, and the best archetype to use with your Cold Trader, in my opinion, is either going to be the Gunslinger archetype or the Mastermind archetype. And the reason why specifically is because the skills you can get from those Gunslinger archetypes as well as Mastermind archetype. If you're going to be more of a supporting role for your leader, I would suggest going with the Mastermind archetype. But if you want your leader, your Cold Trader, to have a more active participation in combat, then I would lean more towards the Gunslinger archetype for that one. Now, when it comes to their equipment, let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So first of all, the first thing they have, of course, is their Armorweave armor. Armorweave armor is actually kind of cool because it also gives you pretty good armor save at 5 up, so that's part is really awesome for having that. At the same time, you also have access to the Sling gun, which is also really powerful as well, because like I said before, you will be able to use the Sling gun for your gang to purchase for your Hive Scum and for your champions as well. Now, the Sling gun is kind of a closer range weapon. It's got a 6-inch short range with a 12-inch long range capability. It's got +2 for its short range bonus to hit, but it comes at strength 4 with -2 AP, causes 1 damage, and also causes 5 up for the ammo roll. Unfortunately, it is a scarce weapon because it is a Xenos weapon, but when you combine that with the fact that it's an armor rapid fire, firing up to 3 strength 4 -2 AP shots, makes it actually pretty deadly, all things considered. So that's the reason why the Sling gun is so popular. And there's some ways to actually mitigate the scarcity trait on that weapon. I'll talk about that a little more when we actually get to the actual roster for this as well. At the same time, you also have the Stiletto knife. Now, the Stiletto knife is just like a normal fighting knife, but the nice thing about that weapon is that it has the toxin trait. So if you're fighting against enemies with higher toughness, you can actually put those guys, higher wound characteristics. You can put those guys out pretty quickly if you can get past their toughness check. So that part's kind of nice. Bio booster is always great for self-defense because you can re-roll injury dice, and that's another thing that's really cool about the Cold Trader as well. Now, the Cold Trader is actually kind of a neat character because they're actually good at shooting or even close combat, and depending on the archetype that you use to build up this character, you can actually cause some serious damage, either the shooting or in the terms of leadership support. Step Aside is great because you have a pretty decent initiative characteristic, so you can actually dodge some being attacked in close combat. Plus, they also come with the Overseer ability as well, and of course, having the ability to double activate either champions, which are shooting our combat champions, or even your Voidborn scum. That is always cool as well. Now, when it comes to your archetypes for the Gunslinger, if you decide to make this into a Gunslinger archetype, I do suggest you take the Fast Shot ability. That way, they can fire up to 2 times with their Sling guns. At the same time, if you want to go with the more support, Mastermind archetype is pretty good too. It allows you to re-roll failed ammo rolls for your Sling gun, which is going to be really important because it's got the scarce trait attached to it. So being able to re-roll that is going to be really immensely important as well. So those are my viewpoints upon the Cold Trader. So the next fighter that makes up your delegation is one of your champions. That character, of course, is the Bosun. Now, unfortunately, every single one of these delegations do have their pros and cons, and the Bosun kind of, on the surface, actually looks like a con. But we're going to talk about a little bit about how you're going to use the Bosun and how you can actually mitigate some of the things you see with that. So once again, the Bosun is your champion. For their stats, they have a 4-inch movement, they have a 5+ weapon skill, which is really horrible for them. They have a 4-up ballista skill, they have a 2 strength, once again, another frown on that one. And they have 3 toughness, they only have 1 wound, so that's kind of hard as well. They do have a 4+ initiative, they have 1 attack, they have 8+ leadership, 7+ cool, 6+ willpower, as well as 6+ intelligence. Now, when it comes to the Bosun, this actually may sound kind of weird, but actually assigning the Bosun the Wyrd archetype is actually a pretty decent build on that one. Yes, they only have a 6 up for willpower, but when you look at the odds of that, you actually have a 72% chance of actually getting your powers off if you make this person to a Psyker using the Wyrd archetype. So because I highly suggest that would actually be a really good build for you. You could argue, of course, you can make him to a Gunslinger by giving them a better weapon, but unfortunately, being able to get the Bosun a better weapon at the start of campaigns can be kind of hard, just because most of your crits will be eaten up between both your transport that you're taking as well as for your delegation core as well. So they're armed with that shotgun, so that's the reason why I was just taking a Wyrd archetype, because you can make that shotgun actually very, very deadly depending on which psychic discipline you actually use. Now, for their equipment, they do have mesh armor, so they have that 5 of armor save, which is nice, and they come with a shotgun with solid scatter shot. Now, that, of course, is not as great, especially when their backup weapon is a fighting knife, and the reason why that's not so great is because to use a shotgun, you do have to get within closer range of your opponents. You only have a 5 weapon skill, you only have 1 attack, and you only have strength 2, so you doing anything significant in close combat is going to be kind of rare for the Bosun, right? So because of that, making this fighter a close quarters battle fighter, which is a CQB fighter, is a horrible option, is not very optimal. But like I said before, because you are spending your credits to create the delegation and for your transport, we're going to try to make the best of a bad situation by making your character tougher, especially when it comes to the shotgun. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the skills being involved. So you do have dodge. Dodge is kind of nice with a 1/6 chance of actually working, so it is largely useless, especially if you're being shot at, so not much there. My suggestion to you is either use the Bosun of 1 of 2 ways. Either one, use him as a bodyguard for the Cold Trader. So you pair this guy with a Cold Trader to protect them at all times. Use that shotgun to keep enemies from engaging your Cold Trader. And the reason why is because more often than not, you will probably be using the Cold Trader's Overseer ability, which is a double action, which leaves the Cold Trader kind of vulnerable. That shotgun is a closer range weapon and it's good for defense, so you might want to do that. Or if you're really desperate, you could use them as the assault leader for your assault fire team. It's pretty much up to you. Now, like I said, because they have the shotgun as the main weapon, and it's going to be very difficult for you to upgrade that weapon at the start of a campaign, I highly suggest you make this fighter into a Wyrd archetype, and specifically you take the Technomancy discipline. Now, unfortunately, the Technomancy discipline is not as useful out in the Ashways as it was in the Underhive. In the Underhive, you could use powers to turn off lights to make blackout conditions, unlock doors, hack computer terminals. There was a lot of cool things you could have done with the Technomancy skill discipline in the Ashways. I'm sorry, not in the Ashways, in the Underhive. In the Ash Waste, that is not the case. Half of these environmental effects will not be able to be used using Technomancy, but half of these skills, however, will be good for using for weapons. Things like giving weapon jinx to your opponents to make their weapons malfunction, the ability to reroll ammo saves, or in this case, for this character, give him the Overcharge ability. The Overcharge ability does take a basic action, and you'll have a 72% chance of getting that psychic power off. And what it does, it allows you to, 1, reroll any failed ammo checks that you might have, and secondly, add +2 strength to your weapon and +1 damage. Now, there is a trade-off, however, it is unstable, but with that ability to reroll your ammo check and some other things you're going to be using for your transport in order to mitigate that ammo check is not that bad. For example, that solid slug shot's going to be strength 6, and it's also going to be causing possibly between 2 to 3 damage on its own. Because that shotgun has got slug shot and the knockback trait, most enemies you're fighting against are only toughness 3, so with a strength of 6, it's going to definitely give you that +1 damage on it. So it's going to be like 3 damage with that solid slug, with a 6 up for the strength. Makes it super deadly. On the flip side, you could also use scatter shot as well. Having a strength 4 scatter shot with d6 wound rolls is actually not bad at all, especially when it's 2 damage for scatter shot as well. So you take that scatter shot or that solid slug, you take that shotgun, combine it with overcharge, and actually makes it a very deadly weapon. It also makes it perfect for using as a lead of an assault team. You just open up your shot, use your basic action to get overcharge off, another basic action, open fire with your shotgun using scatter or solid slug, whatever one actually helps you out the most. Or you could use this as well as to protect the bodyguard for your Cold Trader. Once again, using overcharge and firing either a solid slug or scatter shot to anybody who's threatening your Cold Trader. So because of that, that's how we can actually mitigate a lot of the negatives of the Bosun, especially now since we can actually give them psychic Wyrd archetypes. Alright, so now let's talk about your Peste de Resistance, which are your guys' Void-born scum. These guys cost 150 credits, and you actually get 2 of them with your delegation as well. And these are the reason why most people love playing the Cold Traders for allies, because you have access to these Void-born scum. So once again, they're Ganger level fighters. For their stats, they have 4-inch movement, they have a 3+ weapon skill, 4+ ballista skill, they have 5 strength, 5 toughness, they have 3 wounds, so that's right, 5 strength, 5 toughness, 3 wounds, they have 4 initiative, 2 attacks in close combat. With a charge and additional weapon, they're going to have 4 attacks. They have 8 leadership, 7 cool, 7 willpower, as well as 7 intelligence. So like I said before, the Void-born scum are the hallmark of this delegation. That 3-up weapon skill is really going to be good for close combat, especially if you give them a close combat weapon that gives them +2 to hit in close combat. And the ballista skill actually has got 4-up, which is pretty decent, all things considered. You can actually get these guys some pretty good weapons later on as the campaign develops. Now that strength 5 and toughness 5, that is invaluable. Very rarely are they going to be hurt in close combat. Plus that 5 strength is going to put the punishment on their opponents regardless of what melee weapon they're using. At the same time, having 3 wounds is just awesome. And like I said before, they have 2 attacks base. If they're carrying 2 weapons, like a sidearm weapon and a melee weapon, it's going to put them up to 4 attacks every single time they charge forward. So it's actually going to be really cool, these guys. Now, as great as their stats are, their weapons and equipment choices are actually not all that great. And the reason why the weapon and equipment choices are not all that great is because of their stats. I mean, you can definitely tell it's a balancing mechanic when it definitely comes into that. So that's something you got to look at. And the reason why is because when it comes to equipment, you can either choose, they automatically come with flak armor for 6 up armor save, but you either choose an auto pistol with a fighting knife, which is, average, or a last pistol and a fighting knife. Now, granted, you can actually increase the auto pistol strength with man-stopper rounds and a last pistol with hot shot power pack, so that part is really good. And plus, not to mention that 5 strength for the fighting knife, not that bad either. You can, of course, give them better equipment as time goes on. And oddly enough, one of the things I like to do actually is to give these guys stub guns, oddly enough. And the reason why I recommend doing stub guns with dum-dum rounds is because they have that +2 short range bonus, so that means they'll have ballista skill 2 if they're fighting in the short range. And because these guys will be assaulting always, they'll be able to make that and close a distance as well. So that's actually the kind of funny part about those guys, having that 2-up short range bonus with your stub guns. So like I said, you're going to use these Void-born scum in order to dominate the close combat phase, so I suggest giving them better weapons as the campaign develops. You can automatically buy chain swords for your Void-born scum because they're available in the Hive scum equipment list for your outcasts. So because of that's kind of nice, it gives them +1 to hit as well as parry, as well as rending, which is actually kind of nice too. Strength 5 chain swords with parry are really good because they help you out your fighters fight a little bit more defensively. Like I said before, that +1 hit's also kind of nice. Flails are also a really good choice as well because they give you that +1 to hit as well, just like a chainsword does, and it also gives you +1 strength, making these guys strength 6, which means you'll be wounding most people on 2s when you're talking about these guys, which is kind of nice. Plus the ability to do tangling enemies' weapons so they can't use parry is also nice as well. You could also use chain axes, shock staves, whatever the case may be. Whatever weapons you can get that are better than knives, I highly suggest you get those. And obviously, for the most part, you're going to send these guys to assault enemy vehicles through boarding actions, is what you're probably going to use these guys for as well. So because of these guys make excellent shock troops, unfortunately you can only get 2 of them, but them's the breaks when it comes to the rules. So now that we're done talking about the delegation fighters, let's go and talk about your Outcast champions as well as Outcast Hive scum. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Underhive Outcast Champion real quick. For these gangs, these guys cost 60 credits apiece, and for their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill, 4+ ballistic skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness. They also have 2 wounds, they have 4 initiative, 1 attack. They have 6 leadership, 7 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 8 intelligence. So let's go on and talk about these guys real quick. So when it comes to the Underhive Outcast Champions, they're very versatile, and the reason why is because their stats are pretty much mediocre. Now that's both a good and a bad thing. While it might be bad because they can't excel at any one given thing, whether it's shooting or close combat, it does allow them to be able to equip a large variety of weapons and fulfill any role that you need them to fulfill within your gang as well. Now when it also comes to your guys' Underhive Outcast Champions, archetypes of course are very, very important, but the problem with these guys though is that their archetypes are very limited for their skills in my opinion. For example, they have 5 different archetypes they can choose from, but they only have 1 primary skill, and each of those archetypes followed by 2 secondaries. So for example, if you were to take the Brawler archetype, Brawn would be your primary with Ferocity and Leadership as your secondaries. If you were a Gunslinger archetype, Shooting would be your primary with Agility as well as Leadership as your secondaries. For a Survivor archetype, Ferocity would be your primary, followed by Combat and Leadership for your secondaries. For Mastermind, Cunning would be your primary, with Leadership and Savant as your secondaries. And of course, for Wyrd archetypes, your Psychic Disciplines would be your primary, followed by Cunning and Leadership as your secondaries. Unfortunately for the champion, there are no archetypes where combat is a primary, so that is kind of limiting on what you can do. So you won't be getting any skills really to increase your combat abilities, but better weapons and equipment choices could probably help out with that as well. Now when it comes to their equipment and weapons, they can purchase pretty much anything they want to off the trading post so long as it's within the rarity value of 8 on the trading post. So they are kind of limited in some of their choices, but the reason why that is the case is because you can take 1 champion for every 3 hive scum in your gang. So for example, if you have 6 hive scum in your gang, you can take 2 champions. If you got 9 hive scum, you can get 3 champions, and etc. So that's basically where the trade-off kind of comes in. And then finally, of course, we have our Underhive Outcast Hive Scum, which is your typical Ganger and Juvie level fighter for your gang. These guys cost 30 credits apiece. For their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 4+ weapon skill and ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness. They have 1 wound, 4+ for initiative, 1 attack. They have 8+ for leadership, cool, willpower, and intelligence. And for their skill access, when they become a specialist, their primary is cunning, with ferocity as their secondary. Now, Underhive Scum, Outcast Scum, they're very mediocre, okay? But because of that, they're also very cheap to field. And even though they have very mediocre stats, they count as both gangers and juvie level fighters for your gang, and because their stats are still so mediocre, they can fulfill many different roles in your gang. You can equip them as shooters, close combat, you can use them as support, you can use them as suicide bombers, especially now that you can also put them on waster dirt bikes. They make great pursuers on waster dirt bikes, for example. So there's a variety of things you can do with these guys to fulfill pretty much any role that you want to. And plus, if you decide to make them to a delegation gang, you can also take better weapons equipment from the delegation lists as well. So that's another cool thing about Outcast Hive Scum as well. Now, unfortunately, you cannot start your campaign with an Outcast specialist, so that part is kind of sad. Almost every single gang can have a specialist except for Outcast, so that part is kind of sad, but that's the kind of the trade-off. Yes, you can't get those specialists, but right at the start, but you have so many guys you can choose from, and plus your delegations can fulfill those roles anyways, so it's not that big of an issue. So that makes up your guys' Outcast Hive Scum. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the Gunrunners Smuggler Short Party Gang. This is the roster I will be recommending you guys take for your starting rosters going into the Ash Wastes. And once again, this Gunrunner starting list is going to cost you 1,400 credits. So let's go through the list real quick. So first of all, you're going to have a Cold Trader. It's going to cost you 215 credits. This fighter's got this Gunslinger archetype, Armorweave armor, Sling gun, Stiletto knife, Bio booster, Overseer skill, Step aside skill, as well as a fast shot skill. Like I said earlier, you're going to probably be using this guy to spam Overseer for the most part. You can use the Step aside skill for defensively in order to escape combat. At the same time, you can use the fast shot ability with that Sling gun to devastating effect at short range. After that, you have the Bosun. The Bosun's going to cost you 85 credits. This person's got a Wyrd archetype. They're equipped with mesh armor for that 5 up armor save, shotgun with solid and scatter shot. They have a fighting knife as well as a dodge skill, which is largely useless, but they will be using Technomancy, Psychic Discipline, and give them Overcharge. Because we talked about this earlier with that 6 strength, solid slug shot with knockback giving you 3 damage, or having strength 4 scatter shot with 2 damage. I mean, invaluable, especially if you use it for a short range as well. After that, you're going to purchase an Outcast champion. This fighter's going to cost you 175 credits. This fighter's got the Gunslinger Archetype as well as Mesh Armor to give him 5 up for their armor save. And they're going to be equipped with Plasma Gun as well as Fast Shots. That way they can fire their Plasma Gun twice with Rapid Fire, twice with Maximum Charge, or if you put Overseer on them, they can shoot multiple times as well. Now, you will want to, of course, get those guys some better weapons later on because all they have right now is the Plasma Gun. After that, you got your 2 Voidborn Scum. They cost 160 credits apiece. And the reason why they cost 160 credits apiece is because you're purchasing for them stub guns with dum-dum rounds. They already automatically come with flak armor. They automatically come with knives. But you want to get that shooting ability to get them a little bit better as well. Now, you might be wondering, will Commando Chiefs get what happened to their auto pistols? We'll talk about those here in a second. After that, you're going to have 2 Outcast Hive Scum. Outcast Scum number 1 and 2. Both these guys will cost you 45 credits apiece. Both will be equipped with las guns and auto pistols. Those auto pistols they'll be using are the ones you traded with them from the Voidborn Scum. So we are going to use a loophole in the pre-battle sequence of the game. So we're not going to buy stub guns for the Voidborn Scum per se. We're going to buy those originally for the Outcast Hive Scum. But before the battle starts, we're going to switch some equipment around between our fighters. So that way your Voidborn Scum can use stub guns and dum-dum rounds instead of auto pistols. Yeah, see? Cunning. That's a very much a House Delac move right there. So anyways, so that's how you're going to quit your Outcast Scum. After that, you're going to purchase a Guild of Coin Hauler. It's going to cost you 515 credits. This person's going to be driving a Cargo 8 Rich Hauler with a Munitorium armor container in the back. You're going to give them an easy turnover engine so that way they can get a reroll on that in case their engine dies. And more importantly, give them twin storm bolters. Yes, you are taking 115 credits away from your starting gang, but trust me when I say this, it's well worth the cost for your vehicle. Now, this list is designed to be played defensively. This is due because of the medium range of most of the weapons on these guys using. Most of these guys are firing between the 12 to 24 inch range. So that's the reason why they're so defensive on this one. At the end of each scenario, you'll also be making additional D3 times 10 credits because of the valuable cargo special rule attached to driving a Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. Now, your gang does have an abundance of heavy firepower at disposal, and in addition, because you have that Munitorium armor container, you have a 2+ increase on your ammo rolls with unlimited rerolls. That means you have 3+ ammo rolls for your sling guns, your plasma guns, and for your dum-dum rounds, and 2+ on almost everything else. So you are going to be having tons of ammunition in order to fight your opponent. Now, this gang also consists of 2 fire teams. You have 1 support fire team and 1 assault fire team. Your support fire team will consist of your Cold Trader, your Outcast Champion, and Outcast Scum number 1 and 2, and your Guild of Coin Hauler. Now, this fire team is designed to fight from the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. They can dismount if necessary, but you want to keep them on the Cargo Hauler at all times if you can. The Cold Trader spams the Overseer ability on either the Outcast Champion or on the Guild of Coin Hauler, depending upon the situation you find yourself in. Now, if you decide to use the Overseer ability on the Outcast Champion with their Plasma Rifle, they can fire up to 4 times in the low setting. This will give you 4 rapid fire, strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage shots. Or if you want to take an aim basic action, you can fire with 2 rapid fire shots at strength 5, -1 AP at 2 damage shots. That's a potential of able to fire 12 shots and 6 shots respectively by using that Overseer ability with plasma guns. You're going to be able to put out the damage output like it's nobody's business. And if you should roll an ammo check, it's not that bad because you're on a Munitorium armor container and you come with a 3-up armor, 3-up ammo roll, which is kind of nice. You pair this with the Munitioneer skill from the Savant Tree from the Mastermind archetype. Very powerful combination as well. Now, the other one you can do as well, which is the best in my opinion, is you can use this on your Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler's Twin Storm Bolters. And the reason why is because you only have 1 crew member that operates all those weapons according to the rules. So putting Overseer on that Guild of Coin Hauler means that they use Overseer for all their bolt guns, which means that all the Storm Bolters will be able to give you 8 rapid fire, strength 4 attacks with -1 AP, 2 damage shots with 360-degree point of view, and you have a 4-up on your ammo roll in case of anything happens. If you put Munitioneer skill directly onto your Cold Trader as well as a bonus, that makes you be able to reroll in case you make any fails on those ammo rolls. Absolutely insane. That's up to 24 shots at strength 4, -1 AP, 2 damage. That thing is absolutely deadly. That's the reason why I call this a gun runner list, because of that ability to do that. You're going to be able to tear it up no problem with anything within 12 to 24 inches. You throw monosights on top of those stone bolters and forget about it. You'll be tearing it up at 24 inches everywhere you go. So, because of that, as the campaign develops, I highly suggest you purchase monosights for both the plasma gun for your champion as well as the stone bolters for your storm bolters to give you extra buffs at longer ranges. Having that 2+ to hit at basic aiming is really, really good, especially at long range. Now, granted, you will reduce the number of shots by half, but That extra accuracy at longer range, very much worth it. Now, for your Outcast Hive Scum, they're going to be primarily used as snipers to provide overwatching and sniper fire with their last guns. I suggest you upgrade those with Hotshot last packs to give them a 4-up armor, 4-up strength. At the same time, mono sights for that extra firepower at longer distances. Now, of course, it will increase your ammo roll to a 4 with Hotshot power packs, but because you're on a medium 20 armor container, it's going to drop it to a 2+. So, no harm, no foul there. And I also suggest purchasing Man-Stopper rounds for their auto pistols as time goes on as well, so that way they can be even more deadlier. Now, for your Assault Fire team, that's going to consist of your Bosun, Voidborn Scum number 1, and Voidborn Scum number 2. This fire team is meant to fight defensively, protecting the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler at all times. However, this fire team can fight dismounted if necessary, or to board enemy vehicles. If you decide to do that, I highly suggest that you purchase a boarding ramp for your very first purchase after your first scenario, so that way you can get that +1 in your initiative tests. Now, the Bosun leads the Voidborn Scum in this action, this situation. For your Bosun, start with Overcharge for your basic action, get you that Strength 6 Solid Slick Shot for the shotgun, or Strength 4 for your Scatter Shot with 3 and 2 damage respectively. The Bosun then takes a basic action, to fire. You're not going to really aim too much because you should be shooting this at close range, so you should get those bonuses for your Ballista skill. So when you fire this stuff off, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't directly engage this fighter into close combat because you're low stats. You're mainly going to keep them behind for group activations and for opening with that shotgun with Overcharge. Ideally, your vehicle should be close in range to your boarding actions, and you should be sticking close to your Cold Trader when all this is happening. Now, your Void Scum, those are the real killers in the Assault. Now, as soon as possible, you want to upgrade them with better weaponry as time goes on. Like I said before, chainswords are great for that +1 to hit bonus, plus the ability to parry for defensive and with rending, so that's a really good kind of equal balance attack. Chain axes are really good for just pure good old-fashioned damage output and the ability to disarm your opponent if necessary. Plus, they can also parry, which is actually kind of nice too. And at the same time, flails are also good for mainly offensive capabilities. +1 to hit with your +1 to strength with entangle to keep your enemy from parrying your attacks. Very powerful combination right there as well. And like I said, the choice is yours depending on your combat style and your play style for your weapons for your Voidborn Scum, so just act accordingly, of course. Now lastly, of course, like I said before, we do have stun guns with the Dum Dum rounds. This gives them a +2 to hit bonus for shooting and an extra strength 4 attack in close combat. If you really want to punish your enemies, buy web pistols as soon as you can for your Voidborn Scum. Webbing your enemies and trapping them and then finishing with that coup de grace, oh, ultimate pwn. And that's what I would like to call the Gun Runner Smuggling Shore Party Gang at 1,400 points. So in conclusion, playing a Merchant Guild Delegation Outcast Gang is some of the great ways to add a lot of variety and diversity within a Necromunda campaign. That was actually one of the cool things that came out with the Book of the Outlands, that you got to see so many new gangs to be able to field into campaigns and keep things fresh, keep things interesting, and show a lot of cool different options you can actually do to make the world of Necromunda really, really awesome. At the same time, by playing a Merchant Guild Delegation Gang, you do have a lot of powerful options, and when you throw in vehicles and the equipment and weapons that it can take, you could even make your gang even more powerful as the campaign goes on. So in my opinion, pick your favorite guild, get yourself your very vehicles, whatever flavor you want to, head out to the Ashways and start to tame them for the name of your Merchant Guild and the name of Pride and Profit. Now, of course, as always, just watch out for the saltiness of the Balance Bandwagon. They're going to have a huge field day with this, screaming out grieving and overpowered and game-breaking mechanics and all that kind of stuff. But just remember when you defeat them and they start crying about it, to enjoy those tears and use it to warm your soul. So that's good for those of you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out and stay classy.